There we go. All right, welcome and good morning. This is our July 2025 NOFA kickoff. We can jump to the first slide. I don't know if I'm able to change it myself. But what we are going over today is our notice of funding availability this upcoming round to support affordable housing transactions. We are making available up to $10 million of funding, which is a increase from our previous round. We'll go over the breakdown of that. But this is to support preservation, rehabilitation, or development of new affordable housing units in the city of Detroit. So we have two categories. The first is multifamily, which is sort of the general category for affordable housing development and can include preservation or new construction or adaptive reuse. And then the second category is specifically for permanent supportive housing, and there are $5 million within each of those categories. Supportive housing in particular comes with a different set of scoring criteria and requirements, which we'll get into a little bit today, and then in the compliance meeting as well going forward. So with that, I'm going to hand it off, I believe, to Naomi. Yes, Naomi Beasley Porter. Take it away.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good morning, everyone. My name is Naomi Beasley Porter. I am the supervisor for multifamily housing underwriter, and I'm briefly going to go through the application award timeline, which can also be found in the NOFA document itself and also in Neighborly on the application. So the NOFA was published last Monday. We are currently all in attendance here on the pre-submission meeting. For projects that are interested in submitting to this NOFA round, we will be hosting the pre-application project review meetings. I will put a link to sign up in the chat, but the link can also be found on the HRD underwriting page, and all necessary reference links can also be found on the housing development page as well. So I will also link that. And then there will also be the program compliance information meeting, where there's an opportunity for project teams that come into the NOFA to qualify for points for attendance for the development team and the general contractor that's on your team. That will be August 12th at 10 a.m. I will also put the Eventbrite link in the chat for you to sign up for that meeting. NOFAs are due, NOFA applications are due September 2nd at 11:59 p.m. via the Neighborly application. Someone from our team will be presenting today about the Neighborly application. We know it's a new process for us this round, so we're very excited to be implementing it. Projects that are submitted to the NOFA will be reviewed for threshold, and threshold approval letters will be issued no later than September 25th. For projects that will be submitting for the 9% LIHTC round, or projects that are submitting for the September LIHTC 4%, we will issue support letters accordingly. But for the 9%, we'll issue support letters between September 22nd and 25th. For all other projects that are submitting for the GAP round, you are required to participate in a pre-application project review meeting. And so we encourage you to submit for one of those meetings. A quick note, my apologies. You have to request a project review meeting no later than August 8th. And it is first come, first serve. So we encourage everyone, if you are interested in submitting, to submit your request immediately. If you have previously submitted a request and you are looking to move forward, we did have a slight issue with our previous form where it did not allow for attachments. So we're asking that if you are to request a meeting, that you would resubmit your request for a pre-application meeting with all of the necessary attachments. Those are imperative for us to be able to best respond to what you are presenting with the amount of time that we have. And those are 30-minute meetings. Um, and so then once we issue support letters and we issue threshold approval letters for projects that do pass threshold and receive threshold approval letters, your commitment level documents will be due by 11:59 p.m. on October 6th. In the event that you have a project that you submit your commitment level document deliverables at the time of application, you are still required to submit a commitment level documents application. Otherwise, you are subject to no longer be considered for a NOFA application. So it is imperative that if you are to see through the entire process, that you are meeting all of the deadlines and providing all of the deliverables. And then conditional awards will be issued in December. At this time, I believe I am handing it over to Larry.
Yep. Thanks, Naomi. Morning, everyone. I'm Larry Katrinar. I'm the Director of Housing and Development Underwriting and HRD for the City of Detroit. And as Naomi mentioned, I'm going to run through the funding limits and restrictions for this NOFA. They are the same as previous NOFAs. So if your project is using 9% low-income housing tax credits, you can request funding up to $1 million for your project. For all other projects, so those projects that maybe aren't using low-income housing tax credits or are using 4% low-income housing tax credits, your maximum request is $3 million for those projects. The maximum award per developer, because we do have developers who submit multiple projects per developer, you can receive awards up to $3 million per round. And the maximum number of applications we are limiting for developers to $5 million. So we don't want somebody to submit 10 or 15 applications with $15 million of funding requested. Please pick your top projects that would add up to about $5 million and submit those. The maximum outstanding, as far as outstanding awards and things, if you currently have awards, those really don't have any impact for the current round, the current NOFA applications. So as long as your projects are in good standing and they're moving forward, you can still certainly submit applications to this NOFA. Just one clarification regarding like multi-phase projects. Sometimes we have 9% and 4% combined projects or projects that have multiple phases associated with them. We do limit the award amount to $3 million in the aggregate for if it's really for the same project. And the 9% piece of like a combined 9-4 hybrid project could only get $1 million. But in total, we limit it to $3 million in your application to show that the project can be is viable with the $3 million of funding. One other thing, remember you are applying really for home funds in this NOFA. So another thing that we have to demonstrate for the federal guidelines and the home program is that we're not exceeding certain amount of funding per unit, but most of our projects, because they are mostly affordable units in the projects, we normally don't have a hard time getting that test, but we do note that there is a per unit maximum that we can support projects with. Now, we do, and you'll see in the NOFA that we do for 9% projects, we leave the city some discretion where we could exceed the $1 million of funding for the project. If it's to support the project scoring better for the 9% allocation from MSHDA. But keep in mind, the project has to demonstrate that it's viable with the $1 million so that you could do the project at $1 million, but to improve your score with MSHDA and maybe improve credit efficiency or some other scores with MSHDA, if you were to maybe get another $200,000, you would get another point. The city, we do allow ourselves discretion to support projects in that manner because we do want to, of course, support projects and make them as competitive as they can be when they're applying for low-income housing tax credits through MSHDA. So, Naomi, if you could go to the next page, please. Okay, I wanted to touch a little bit on the funding sources that are in this NOFA. And again, you can find all this information within the NOFA. You are primarily applying for home funds. That's what the project will be evaluated for and evaluated against the home program guidelines. But at the city's discretion, we may choose when we actually award funds to the project to award community development block grant program funds or CDBG funds. We may award CDBG disaster recovery funds, which are CDBG DR funds. Those funds do have additional restrictions and things associated with them, as far as some tie back to disasters and some other things. But the city, we would evaluate when it would maybe make sense to use some of these, other CDBG funds. CDBG funds, just a difference between CDBG and home funds is also some federal cross-cutting regulations. Kick in much sooner on CDBG funds than they do for home funds. So things such as Davis-Bacon prevailing wages and some other things that would apply to projects. But the city will certainly work with the developers and make sure that we're not doing anything that makes the project harder for the developer. We would do it where it makes sense and work with you if we decide to change those from a home to a CDBG type program. Other type of funds that we do have the Affordable Housing Development and Preservation Fund that the city has, which is a city general fund funded trust fund that we can support projects. It is restricted to support primarily units that are deeply targeted affordability. So 30% area median income rents are what those funds are usually used for those projects. But sometimes, again, we may think that those funds make the most sense in combination possibly with other funds when we're making the award. And then we also have Home American Rescue Plan Act. These are not ARPA funds. Those the ARPA funds no longer are available, but home ARP funds are similar to home, although they are restricted. The city has designated them only to support permanent supportive housing projects. So, so for those projects, it may make sense that we would award some home ARP fund to those. So with that, that's sort of the information I wanted to run through this morning. I'm going to turn it over to Wendy Hatcher, who's one of the underwriters on our team. Wendy?
Thanks, Larry. Good morning, everyone. As Larry stated, my name is Wendy Hatcher, and I am one of the underwriters here for the HRD department, and I'm going to go over the Affordable Housing Development Program requirements. Um, just to let you know that the funds can only be used for eligible costs and activities. So some eligible costs that may be included would be acquisition costs, rehabilitation or construction, demolition, city legal fees. Just to note that the city estimates the legal fees to be about $40,000. However, that cost may change or increase due to the complexity of the project. Also, some reserve costs that may be included would be like operating deficit or um, operating assurance costs, and then some additional soft costs such as your environmental reviews, your appraisals, architectural, engineering fees, things of that nature. Um, The other thing I want to go over is that the ineligible activities, some ineligible activities that you may not be reimbursed for would be general planning, those administrative costs, rental or other costs associated with the project, community activities or events, groundbreaking, things of that nature, relocation costs, refinancing of pre-existing debt on property, the payment of delinquent property taxes or utilities, purchases of equipment, furniture, fixtures, things of that nature, entertainment costs, other ineligible costs as the OMB, which is the 2 CFR Part 200. And then also the city may not use the permanent mortgage on the property for home buyers projects. Um, Lead-based inspections, things of that nature. And then also, I just want to point out that the city do not reimburse for permit fees paid to be seed. I did reference a lot of eligible and ineligible costs, and you may find these in the NOFA on pages 11 through 13. Also, you can find it on the Code of Federal Regulations, which is www.ecfr.gov, and also in the 24 CFR Part 92.214 and 2 CFR Part 200. I know I went through those really quickly, but those are also linked in the NOFA for your references. Also, the city assists with units must meet household income and rent restrictions. The household rent restrictions to meet inclusionary housing ordinance requirements of at least 15% of units needs to be 60% AMI and 5% needs to be 50% of AMI. The rent restrictions for each. Just to let you know that with the home funds, they must be rented to households who are below 60% of area median income or below. At least 20% of the home units must be rented to households at 50% or below. You can find the inclusionary housing ordinances on the City of Detroit's website. And also the rent restrictions can also be found in Appendix B of the NOFA on pages 27 through 31. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hand that off to my coworker, Terry.
All right. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Terry Davis, and I am one of the underwriters also on the multifamily HRD team. And with this slide, what I want to do is go over the compliance requirements that you'll need to, or your project will need to adhere to as a stipulation for receiving city funds. So these things are very important. And I'll start with your environmental review requirements. So as we have stated in our NOFA, all of the projects receiving city funding are going to be subject to and must satisfy the environmental review process before any city funds can be committed to your project. Additionally, upon the submission of your application for assistance, the developer and all of the project participants are going to be agreeing to this list of stipulations, and I'll outline these for you. You're agreeing to your project funding is going to be subject to the findings of your environmental review and whatever the results of that call for. Also, you're agreeing to no choice limiting actions are going to be taken on the project between the date of the NOFA issuance and the date on your notice to proceed. The notice to proceed is going to be a document that you'll receive once the review has been completed. So nothing should occur on that property or project between that time, again, of the NOFA issuance and the date on that notice to proceed. Choice limiting actions are basically your acquisitions, improvements, rehab, constructions, demolition, anything like that. And we do have a detailed description of what those are in the appendix of your NOFA. So you do want to take a look at that and make sure you understand what those are and what you can and cannot do on the property, because failure to adhere to any of this could result in either denial of funding for your entire project or disqualification for reimbursements for costs associated with whatever that choice limiting action was taken. So make sure you take a look at that. And then lastly, what I want to mention is any purchase or option agreement executed prior to the submission of your application to the NOFA, it's going to need to include the HUD NEPA rewind language in it. And we do have details on what that language looks like. It's on page 15 of your NOFA. So take a look at that as well. All right, moving on to Davis-Bacon and your related acts requirements. Federal labor laws will apply to projects that are awarded CDBG funds to build or rehab 8 or more units, consist of 12 or more home units, or include 9 or more federal project-based vouchers. The applicable labor laws include the Davis-Bacon Act, the Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act, and the Copeland Anti-Kickback Act. Construction will be subject to all federal and local prevailing wages and record-keeping requirements. All right. In terms of your Section 3 requirements, here the applicants will agree to comply with the HUD regulations and HRD Section 3 policies and guidelines. You're going to need to submit and sign a intent to comply document as well as your Section 3 plan. And if you have any prior Section 3 experience, a detailed explanation of that is going to need to be submitted, outlining what your past verifiable strategies were for hiring and training low to very low income individuals, contracting with Section 3 businesses, and advising if those strategies were successful. Moving on to your construction and rehab requirements. Rehab and construction supported with city funds are required to adhere to all applicable state and local laws, building codes, zoning, and any other requirements related to construction, rehab, housing safety, quality, and habitability. Projects must meet housing HRD's performance standards, and they are subject to accessibility requirements under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. For your energy standards, new and substantial rehab projects of 4 stories and above receiving city funds must be designed to meet American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers standards, 90.1/2019. Developers are highly encouraged to incorporate modern green building and energy efficient elements into the design plans, and you actually are awarded points for meeting these applicable standards. Your construction plans are going to need to outline the governing design standard as well as your certification requirements. So keep that in mind. Moving to your relocation requirements. All city-assisted homes and properties acquired or rehabilitated through this NOFA are going to be subject to the Uniform Relocation Act. And this states that the tenants of occupied properties receiving city funds cannot be permanently relocated. And a copy of the required general information notice that was issued to the residents of an occupied property at the time of your application must be submitted with the application. Also, we do encourage that any developer seeking funds for occupied properties, you're encouraged to meet with our city's preservation team as soon as possible, because you want to just make sure, and you need to provide them a draft tenant relocation plan. So it's just good to take a look at that and walk through that with that team, just to make sure all of the rules are going to be followed in your plan. So and also that the tenant relocation plan must demonstrate how the project is going to prevent displacement of the existing residents, and including a plan for any temporary relocation. So you want to make sure you outline all the details of that in your plan. Occupied and recently vacated properties in which occupants have been subject to mass evictions, non-renewals, rent increases, or any other displacement triggering events resulting in high vacancies may be disqualified for funding from this NOFA. So we want to keep that in. All right, moving to your project and construction cost requirements. Upon your application submission, the developer is going to need to submit a trade payment breakdown for the project from your general contractor. Your contingency standards will need to be, for your hard costs, will need to be included in that trade payment breakdown. And typically, those contingency stipulations are 5% for new construction, 12.5% for rehab projects, and 15% for historic rehab properties. And the contractor's fees is governed by ratios of 6% profit, 2% overhead, and 6% general conditions. For your pre-closing construction requirements, the developer must provide a third-party cost estimate of your construction budget. It must also attest to and certify that no member or contracting entity of the team is presently debarred, suspended, proposed for debarment, or declared ineligible or voluntarily excluded from a federally funded transaction. And you'll need to make sure you register with the SAM's website. And what that does is allow the city team to go in and verify that no one is on the list. So we want to make sure, and that's kind of a timely process. So we want that to occur as soon as possible to get registered and go through that process to make sure you are showing an active status. So keep that in mind. The contractor for the developer will be required to secure a 100% payment and performance bond for a property with construction costs of $100,000 or more. And your surety, which is a provider of the bond, must be authorized to do business in the state of Michigan. Your cost certification requirements. A certification report must be prepared by the developer at the time of project completion and must list and certify all the actual sources of the funding that were used for the project. And the city does reserve the right to require a cost certification report be prepared by an independent public accountant or to request a copy of the reports required by other project funders. As to your marketing requirements, the applicant or the developer must agree to provide the city with a current property listing and the details of that property. And we need to make sure we keep that information updated on our Detroit Home Connect web-based portal. And also to use that portal, the developer and your property managers, you guys will be given login credentials to get into that system and make sure that your property details are updated, particularly when you're almost at construction completion and you're getting ready for lease up. We want to make sure that that information is on the site. And moving forward, we do have a process that we're going to schedule some meetings and connect you with the contact people to help you do that, to make sure that information is provided and out there available. BABA, Build America, Buy America Act. The development team is going to need to certify compliance with these requirements and the Buy America preference requirements unless a waiver has been obtained. And we have details about this requirement outlined for you, and that's on page 19. So you do want to reference that and make sure you read all the details concerning that, because that one is very important as well. And then lastly here, ongoing compliance and affordability restrictions. Once your project has been, the construction is complete or the rehab is complete and operational, at that point, we usually turn the project over to our asset management team, and they're going to monitor the project to just ensure affordability is maintained throughout the affordability period of the project. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Tamika, who will go through the application process.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tamika Walker. I am one of the underwriters here at HRD and going to go through walk you through the application process. The pre-application project review and meeting and deliverables will be July 30th through August 14th of 2025. The program compliance information meeting will be held on August 12th of this year. And to submit application via Neighborly will be opened up and done by September 2nd. The threshold review and threshold approval letters will start going out on September 25th of this year. And you must submit the submitted commitment letter. You must submit your commitment level documents no later than October 6th of this year to be compliant by projects to receive threshold approval letters. So again, you must submit your commitment level documents by October 6th to be in compliance to receive a threshold approval letter if your project makes it through threshold review. At this time, I'm going to turn it over. We're going to go into our Neighborly process.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Elena Peterson. I'm a project manager at HRD, and I am going to be walking you through the Neighborly system, which is an online portal that the department is using and will be using for the application for this NOFA. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. Okay, if I can just get a thumbs up, Naomi, or anyone on the HRD side, just to make sure
I
that
can
it is
see your screen.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so the link to the Neighborly portal is already in the NOFA document. I will also throw it in the chat once I am done presenting here. But when you click on that link, it is going to take you to this login page. If this is your first time coming to Neighborly, you are going to click the sign up now that you will see right here. Clicking that, you are going to enter in your email address and then click the send verification code button, which is going to send a verification code to the email you inputted above. You are then going to grab that verification code and enter it into the text box and then continue with the prompts, and it'll prompt you to create a password. Once you've created your password, then it'll take you to the main dashboard. I will note that, again, the department is using Neighborly for applications for multiple programs. Some of those programs include our tax abatements and our pilot program. So if any of you have already created a Neighborly account to apply to any of those programs, you do not need to create another account. You just need one account for the platform. So in that case, you would just enter in your email address and your password, again, for instances where you've already created an account with the system. A couple of things to point out before I go to the main dashboard. You'll see down here that there is a button for language preference. In the event you would like to change the default language for the system, these are the available options: Arabic, Bengali, Spanish, and of course, English. You can select any of those and the system will change all of the language or all of the text on the system to that language. One thing to note is as we go into the application itself, you will see that there are a number of fields where you are typing in text as a response to a question. In the event you selected to change your default language in the system, it is not going to translate any of your responses. Whatever language you use or whatever text you put into the system, it is going to keep that language. So just want to call that out, that you have the ability to switch your language, but that is only going to be for all of the text that appears in the application. Your response is going to stay the same for however you enter it into the system. The other thing I want to point out is this technical support button in the lower right-hand corner. At any point, whether you're on this first login page here or whether you're into the system itself, you'll always see this technical support button that you can click on at any time. As it suggests, this is for true technical support. So things like you're not able to log into the system, you're not getting a confirmation email, you need to reset your email and password, you're getting an error message, you're locked out, etc. If you're experiencing any of those issues, simply click on that technical support button and it'll bring you to this list of options. Click on the one that applies to the error or issue you're running into, fill out these couple of fields and click submit, and it will send an email to Neighborly's technical support team. Their business hours are Monday through Friday, I believe 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time, and they're pretty prompt in their response. So again, if you're having technical issues, this is what you're going to click on to resolve those. Okay, so once you have clicked sign up and gotten the verification code and created your password, or if you're a returning user, again, you're going to come to this page and enter in the email address that you signed up with. You're going to enter in your password and then you're going to click sign in. Okay, so this is the main dashboard you're going to come to. You'll see it says welcome to the Detroit, Michigan portal at the top, and it should welcome you with your name up at the top as well. Now, as someone who's logging in for the first time, you're not going to have anything here. So when you first log in, it's just going to be this section down here that says start a new application. You'll see that there are a number of programs that we, as an HRD, are currently accepting applications for. The one that we're talking about today for the NOFA is this Housing Rehabilitation Development Program. As we've mentioned, the application itself is currently open and it will close September 2nd at 11:59. So again, want to call out that when you first come to this page, you're going to see this section that says start a new application, and you're going to look for this program, Housing Rehabilitation and Development Program. And then you're simply going to click the blue button that says start application. It's going to prompt you with this dialog box asking you to enter in the name of your project. So for the purposes of this demo today, I'm just going to title it as such, but again, you're going to use the name of your project. You're going to enter that in, and then again, you're going to hit the Start Application button. Okay, so you are now in an application for the Housing Rehabilitation and Development Program application. Again, it notes that this application must be submitted by September 2nd at 11:59 Eastern Standard Time. You'll also notice that there is a unique ID number. This is important to keep for reference. For the purposes of each application will have its own unique ID number. So if at any point down the road you're communicating with HRD staff, this is a great this is great to reference, because again, it can help HRD staff navigate directly to your application. So just ask that you note this number down. In a minute, I'll hop back to the dashboard and show you that it'll be listed there as well, but just want to call out that each application will have its own unique ID number. Okay, as you will see on the left-hand side are all of the various sections of the application that you are going to complete. And so I think we're just going to go ahead and jump into those now. So coming to this page, you can simply click this button that says click here to continue, and it's going to bring you to the first page of the application. Okay. This is an overview of the application. Again, it has the same timeline that Naomi walked us through, and that is also listed in the NOFA document itself. I will note that the NOFA document is linked here as well. So if you were to click on this link, it's going to open up that NOFA document in a new tab. So you can reference this throughout the application as needed, and simply go back to your first tab to save your spot in the application in the neighborly system. The other thing I want to note is that I had mentioned that technical support button, which was on the login page, and that is for questions related to the neighborly system itself. If at any point throughout the application you have questions related to the application or related to programmatic requirements, compliance, things of that nature, this is what you should be using, this email address here, hrdnofa@detroitmi.gov, to submit those questions. If you were to submit any type of application or programmatic related question through that technical support, Neighborly obviously is not able to answer those type of questions. They would just route it to us internally here at HRD, which is just going to take more time to get you the answers you're looking for. So again, just want to call out that those two distinctions. If you have questions related to the application or programmatic requirements, you need to submit those to this email address here. If you have technical questions related to the system, again, you're locked out or you're getting some type of error message, those are the type of things that you would submit through that technical support button. Okay. Again, all of the information on this page is listed in the NOFA document itself. And then in terms of functionality, want to point out that throughout the application, on each of these section pages, at the bottom, you will see two buttons, a save button and a complete and continue button. The save button does what you would think it would do. It's going to save your process as you're completing the page. The complete and continue button is when you are fully completed with a page. And it will, as you'll see when you click it, mark the page as having been complete. So the other thing to note is that on certain pages, there are required fields that you must complete before you can mark that page as complete and continue. So for instance, you can see that we have some check boxes here, and these are for various process requirements that we're asking you to read and check off to acknowledge that you are going to follow these. And we have made these required so that you are in fact not able to mark complete and continue until you've checked them off. So again, just want to call out this functionality exists on all of the pages. If you try to hit complete and continue without completing anything that is marked required, you're going to get this little message in red that says, basically is alerting you that you've not completed all the required fields. So simply follow where they've outlined in red. In this case, it is checking off these boxes. And once you've done that, then you should be able to click complete and continue. And that moves you along to the next page. So a couple of things to note. When I clicked that complete and continue button, it gave me a check for that page. Again, I was on the program overview page. Clicking that complete and continue button gave me the check. If I were to go back to that page, it has marked it as complete, and for the moment, I am not able to edit. However, if I click this reopen button, again, this goes for any of the pages. If you click the reopen button, that then allows you to re-edit that page. So if I click reopen, I'm now able to edit this page again, but you'll notice that I've lost that check mark next to the page because it is at the moment not in complete status. So I can go back, make whatever changes, hit complete and continue again. I now have the green checkbox and I can move on to the next page. Before we continue on this page, I do just want to call out some of the acknowledgements that we're having you check off on because they are related to the submission process. So the first one here related to file name format requirements. So as we go through the application, you'll note that there are a number of upload fields where you are uploading various documents. This first requirement is indicating how you should be naming your files before uploading them. And the formula is that you title it as the upload letter and number, which will make more sense when we get into the pages, underscore project name, underscore JUL for July 2025. So an example would be for our executive summary, which is an upload under section D. and the field or the question is D1. So you would name it D.1 _ name of the project, in this case, Orange Grove Heights _ July 2025. So again, please use this formula, this naming convention for all of your uploads throughout the application. We also have a note about file size limitations. Neighborly, you can upload an individual document up to 100 megabytes. If you have any document that exceeds that, please use this link to upload that document. We already talked about the pre-application project review meeting. So again, this is just asking you to sign off acknowledging that. And as I mentioned, any communication with the city needs to come through this HRD NOFA at detroitmi.gov email address. Again, just asking you to acknowledge that. And then lastly, asking you to acknowledge the fact that at the city's sole discretion, the submitted application and support documentation may be deemed incomplete and will not be considered for review. Okay, so again, this page, program overview, all of this information included in the NOFA document itself. You're just gonna reread these process requirements and acknowledgements, check them off, hit the blue complete and continue button, and that'll move you along to the next page. Okay, the application itself, should be pretty self-explanatory. It's broken up into sections A through I, and then there is a submit page at the very bottom. You'll see that there are a number of fields per section, all labeled as the letter of the section and then the number of the question. Some are open text fields, some are radio buttons, some are drop downs, and some are upload fields. So again, the Neighborly system is pretty user-friendly, so it will guide you in terms of the format. For instance, you can see phone numbers already in a phone number format. Same thing with an email address. It'll prompt you for the email address format. So you'll simply go through the application section by section, completing all the fields. The one thing I do want to note about the Neighborly system is that it is not an autosave system, meaning that if you were to accidentally exit out of your browser before having hit save, unfortunately, whatever work you had completed will be lost if you had not hit the save button. So with that, I do recommend, because this is a pretty lengthy application and specific pages can be lengthy as well, that you are periodically scrolling down to the bottom and hitting save so that you do not lose your work. We state that at the top of each page, but again, just want to call that out, please, because it will be extremely frustrating if you were to accidentally exit out without hitting save. As you're working through pages, I recommend, every 10 to 15 minutes, scroll down to the bottom and just hit save just to be safe. And that way you won't lose your work. As I mentioned on the program overview page, if you were to try and hit complete and continue without filling out all the required fields, you're not going to be able to do so. As you can see, everything lights up red that is required. You need to fill that out before you can hit complete and continue and get that checkbox for that particular page. Once you go in and do fill everything out, then you are able to hit that button. So I'm just going to really quickly, just for demonstrative purposes, show you that. Another thing to mention about the system, there are certain questions with conditional logic built in, meaning that based on how you respond to one answer, for instance, A10, is there a co-developer? If I select yes, additional fields populate. If I were to select no, then obviously nothing needed, you move on. So just calling that out. Okay, so I have now answered, I believe, all of the questions that are required. And so now if I hit complete and continue, it should allow me to move on to the next page. Great. And again, I've gotten a checkbox. So I am not going to make you watch me fill out this entire application, but I will just click through each of the sections so that you can get a sense for, again, the type of questions and the formatting of each page. So section B is project capacity. Again, this should all be pretty straightforward. We do have a table here for question B4, so I'll just show you how that functionality works. You simply just click add a row, and this is asking for address, current owner, and census tract. So it may be that you just need one row, or you may need multiple. So you simply click however many you need. If you click too many, you can simply click the red X, and it'll go back to however many you need. So I think we have a couple sections where we have a table. Again, pretty easy functionality. Just simply add as many rows as you need. Throughout the application, we may have some links listed to help you complete the application. The links will be in blue. Again, simply just click on the link and it's going to open a new tab. And you can reference that, and it'll always keep the tab you were on so that you don't lose your spot. Again, we've got a number of different types of questions in terms of formatting, these radio buttons, drop downs, check boxes. In these cases, B11 and B12, we've got the language for you to check all that apply. If there is a field that you see grayed out, such as B15, that just means it's a formula field. So depending on what I put in the preceding ones, it's going to auto-calculate for you. So that's all that the gray field means. You don't enter anything. It's calculating from other fields. Okay, we've got this type of table down here, B20. This is your affordability level breakout. As you can see, the rows are the AMI level, and then the columns are the bedroom size, and it's going to auto-calculate your total units at the bottom. B21 is another table, so again, you're going to click Add Row for as many rows as you need, and then it also contains a drop-down, so you're going to select apartment, duplex, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't need these many, then just go back and delete. Anytime you see a blue question mark, if you hover over it, there's some additional kind of helpful language for you. So B23 is explaining what type A accessible units mean, and B24 type B accessible units. So again, if you see a question mark, just hover over it and it'll give you some additional context. Okay, so here you're getting that warning language that says if you move on to the next page without clicking save, you're going to lose your information. I did not enter anything, so I'm going to click proceed. But if you had entered information, you'd want to hit cancel. Make sure you save your work before leaving the page. Okay, section C is a section that is only needed if you're applying for permanent supportive housing. So if you are applying for permanent supportive housing, you'll click yes, and you'll see that there are a number of fields and questions that you need to complete. If you are not applying for permanent supportive housing, you simply check no, and it directs you to just hit the blue complete and continue button and move on to the next page. So you can do that as applicable. Again, you get the warning about not having saved your work. Okay, section D now is where we get into a lot of the upload information. So just want to show you how that works functionally. You can see that anytime there is an upload field, you see this blue upload file button over to the right. Simply click that and it will open up your files folder, and then you can select whatever document it is that you're uploading for that particular field. I'm just going to do kind of a dummy upload here. Couple things to note. One is that Neighborly will accept any format, Word doc, PDF, Excel. In certain fields or questions, we have noted what format you should be uploading it in, so please pay attention to that. The other thing to note is please make sure you're titling your documents based on that formula that we covered on the program overview page, which was, again, what is the number of this question or field? So in this case, it would be D.1 underscore project name underscore July 2025. So again, please make sure you save it using that naming convention before you upload it. And then the other thing to note is that you can functionally upload multiple files within a given upload. So Neighborly is always going to give you the ability to add another file. Simply click that, and if for whatever reason you have 2 uploads for a given field, you do have the ability to do that. If you need to remove the file, you accidentally uploaded the wrong thing, just click the red X. It's going to make sure that you want to in fact delete. If you do, click delete, and then it's gone, and then you can upload the correct file. The other thing to call out is in some instances, we've noted that a particular field or document is only required for a subset of projects, and we've outlined that in red font. So again, pay attention to that. If it doesn't apply to you, obviously you don't need to provide that information, but if this is something that applies to your project, then obviously, as stated, it is required. Okay, so again, section E is all uploads. Okay, section F, all uploads. Again, we've covered that functionality. Okay, so section G here, just want to call out that in some instances, what is an upload field, there is going to be a blue link, which means that we want you to click on this link, download this form, complete the form, and then that is what you're uploading. So if you see a blue link listed in the upload field, that means that, again, this is the specific document you are to be completing and uploading in this section. Okay. Again, section F, I think we've covered all this functionality. Again, we've got another link here, so click on it, download that form, complete it. That's what you're uploading in this field. And again, paying attention to the red text. For instance, H7 is only needed for LIHTC projects, whereas H6 is required for everyone. Okay, and then section I, it looks like a lot of upload fields with an open text field at the bottom. Open text, obviously you can type in whatever you need. This will just expand based on how long your response is. And in several cases, the team has indicated, 1 paragraph max, 2 paragraph max. So again, please pay attention to what the instructions are in the question itself. Okay, one thing to note, as I mentioned, we have the program overview sections A through I, and then we have this submit page. Right now, I cannot click on the submit page. The reason is that the submit page is only able for you to click on it when you have checkboxes for all of the sections. So because I don't have checkboxes for everything right now, I'm not able to click on this page. I'm not able to submit. I do have one already mostly fully complete, so I'm just going to duplicate my tab here to show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is one that I previously created. Again, Housing Rehabilitation and Development Program. You'll notice it has a different ID. So this one is 36369, whereas this one is 36373. So again, that's a really important just number to have reference for. Okay, so you can see that I have green checks all the way through I. I still cannot submit because I'm missing the check on section I. But if I click on that page, if I can't click complete right now because I'm missing I-9. So I'm going to upload a document here to satisfy that. Okay, and now I'm able to click the complete and continue button. So I'm going to click complete and continue. Okay, it gave me the check next to section I, and it moved me along to the submit page, which again, here, because I don't have all the checks, I can't get to the submit page. But once you have all the checks for all the sections, now you're able to see the submit page. So the submit page has a number of attestations that you need to read through and then simply check that you acknowledge and attest to them. And I will go ahead and do all of those. Okay, then the last question, are you the individual submitting the application, the developer? If yes, select yes, and then you're going to electronically sign here. If you, again, the individual submitting the application, are not the developer, you'll select no, and then we're asking that you download and complete and upload the resolution of certificate of authority. So you're going to do one of those. For the purposes of the demo, I'm going to say that I'm the developer, and I'm going to electronically sign by typing in my name. It's going to mark the actual user's account that entered this in and date and timestamp it. And then you are able to submit. Now, before you submit, another important thing to call out, as I mentioned previously, even if you have green check boxes, and let's go back, for instance, to section A. I'm going to save this so I don't lose it. And I'm going to go back to section A. Okay, so I had previously completed section A and clicked the complete and continue button at the bottom, which gave me the check. As you can see, all of these fields right now are in read only, meaning I can't edit it unless I scroll down and click reopen. So before you submit your application, you have the ability to reopen any of the pages you have previously completed. So if you need to make any edits, you simply click reopen. You make whatever edit you need, but again, you lost that checkbox, so you need to make sure that you select complete and continue, otherwise you won't be able to submit. So again, before you submit, there's going to be the ability to reopen any page to make any edits that are needed. You then simply make your edits, hit the complete and continue button to make sure that you have all the checkboxes. The reason I'm calling that out is because after you submit your application, you no longer will be able to go back to a page and reopen it. And that's what this is noting up at top. Once an application is submitted, it can only be reopened by an administrator, meaning someone at HRD. So again, just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. Before you submit, you have the ability to reopen pages and edit. After you submit, you lose that. So once you submit, everything is final. Okay, so just to show you what it would look like, again, you've completed all your sections, you've electronically signed, or you've uploaded that resolution of certificate of authority. You then hit the complete and submit button. It's going to remind you that you can't edit after this point. You click proceed. And it lets you know that your application has been submitted. Additionally, you'll also receive an automatic email notifying you that your application has been submitted. So another thing to note is even after you've submitted, you still have the ability to come back and view your application. Again, at this point, you just no longer have the ability to edit anything. So if we return to the dashboard, again, how I started the application was by coming down here, finding the Housing Rehabilitation and Development Program, and clicking Start Application. Once you have started an application, to access it at any point, you're going to find it under this Continue an Existing Application section. So I have a number here you can ignore. We're in the process of building out applications for various HRD programs. So this is all just test cases that you can see I'm working on. But the ones that I was just in were this developer demo test 1 and developer training test 2. So again, once you create an application to return to it, you're going to find it under this continuing existing application section, and you simply click the view application to view it. So this training test 2, I think, is the one that I submitted, which yes, you can see here. So the other thing is it's going to show you the status of the application. So I had one that I did not submit, and that's going to show application in progress. I have the other one that I did submit, and it's going to show application submitted. In either case, I have the ability to view the application. This is the one I submitted. Again, you'll see I don't have any of those reopen buttons because I submitted it. But if I were to go to the one that was still in progress, you would see that I have the ability to still edit those pages or reopen any of those pages. Okay, a couple of last things to point out, and then can see if there are any questions in the chat. Okay, so once an application has been started, you'll notice that there is this View Users button up here. If you click that, you're going to see the email address for the account of whoever created the application. You have the ability to add additional users to this application once it's been created. So if there are multiple individuals that need to contribute to this application, whoever created the application has the ability then to add additional users. You're just gonna, it should default to participant. That's the role you want. So participant will show here. You're going to add in the email address for whoever you want to invite to edit this application, add first name, add last name. If that particular individual has never logged into Neighborly, they're just going to have to go through that login process where they click sign up now. Just make sure you use the correct email address because the email address that you're adding in here is the one they need to use to then access this application. Once they create their password and log into Neighborly, when they go to the dashboard, they are going to see this application under that Continue an Existing Application section because you've already attached them to the application. There is no limit to the number of users you can add, so simply add participant, add the email address, first name, last name, click add as many times as you need. And whoever, again, you give access to here is going to have the ability to access and edit this application. As we went through the different sections, you saw there were a number of places where you were uploading documents. You also can see all of those documents when you have in fact added them. They'll all be listed here as well. So if for whatever reason you kind of wanted to see the full list of all the documents associated with this application, this is where you can come and see that quickly. Otherwise, you can return to each of the sections where those individual uploads live. And then last thing I want to point out is you have the ability to print the application. So on this left-hand navigation, if you were to select print, sorry, loading for a second here. It's going to print the entire application. So all of the sections, and it will include whatever responses you have at this moment. If you're in Google Chrome, you're going to select your downloads up here, and it's going to print it as a PDF, and you can simply download, open it up. If for whatever reason you only wanted to print a particular section or page, you also have the ability to print just that page. So if you click into whatever page you're looking for, you can click this print step icon. Again, that's going to print just the particular page you're on. If you want to print the entire application, you're going to use this one over here. Okay. I think that covers everything. The last thing I want to note is that commitment level documents will also be collected through Neighborly. It's going to look a little bit different, and we will have a separate training right before those are due so that you all will know how to submit those through Neighborly. But again, what we covered today is how you submit the actual NOFA application itself. I don't see any questions. I don't think, Naomi, in the chat. Anything else to cover on Neighborly? Oh, I'm going to actually put the link in the chat right now.
Thank you, Elena. Did anyone have any Neighborly related questions? All right, and so we just have one more slide here with some high level information. 1 second. All right. 1 moment. All right. So just to reiterate, pre-application meetings are to be scheduled by August 8th. They will be held from July 30th through August 14th. 1 moment, please. Please RSVP for the program compliance information meeting. Again, that will be held on August 12th. And these slides will be available online, but all of the links that have been referenced today can be found on the Housing Development webpage. And if there are any other NOFA related questions, please reach out to our HRD NOFA at DetroitMI.gov website. I will put that in the chat. And at this time, we will open up the floor for any questions.
Thanks, Naomi. I did want to mention one other thing, because as Naomi said, like, start the application sooner rather than later is always a suggestion. Don't wait till the last minute. There is a lot of information, and it is a newer system or a new system, so you want to make sure that you're starting your application early, and you can save it as you get through it. But there's a lot of information that you have to gather. As you saw on one of the earlier slides with the application, one of the things that was on there was it did show that there's a requirement to have your unique entity identifier, your UEI, from the sam.gov system. So for anyone who's a new developer, we want to see that for the developer. What that is the federal government, when we're using federal funds, requires that we verify that the entity requesting federal funds has not been previously debarred for any reason from receiving federal funds in the future. So that that is a separate process outside of our NOFA. So you should, there's a link in the NOFA, and there's links on the in the application. There's a link to the sam.gov website. You should start that, because it's not something that necessarily happens in a few hours. It may take a little bit of time to get that number issued to you if you don't have one already. So just wanted to put that out there, because that's you don't want to wait again to the last minute on some of these things.
Thank you, Larry. If I we'll stay on a bit. I believe this meeting is from 11 to 1. So the HRD team and Elena, if we can just stay on a bit if any questions arise. But if anyone has any immediate questions right now, please raise your hand in Teams so that we can make sure that we address everyone's questions. Yes, Michelle?
Hi, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My question is, I actually have a two-part question. My first question is, I have like a two-family unit. Is that something that would be eligible for, rehab?
Smaller projects, Michelle, tend to, and that's what we would consider a very small project. Depending on the amount of funding and the percentage of your funding, they sometimes have a challenge competing. So a 2-unit project probably more than likely wouldn't be competitive, and maybe all of the federal requirements that are associated that we sort of touched on, and you may want to join, or you should join, the compliance information meeting, Michelle, to learn about a little bit more information on all the federal requirements that apply to projects. Some of those, and specifically even just the environmental costs and things that are associated with that, sometimes become very cost prohibitive for smaller projects, because you just don't have enough project budget to sort of spread those costs over. If you've got a 50 or 100 unit project, it's easier to absorb a $10,000 or $15,000 report that may be needed to meet the environmental testing requirements, versus a smaller project that becomes a larger cost. So that just wanted to hopefully that answered your question. But you may join the compliance information meeting, and you'll get a little bit more familiarity with that. At that meeting, all of the teams that are involved in the federal funded programs will present their, what the requirements are relative to their the project being able to move forward with federal funds. So I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Cecily?
Cecily, we're not able to hear you if you're talking.
We can circle back to Cecily. I think she dropped off to join back on. Dennis Murphy.
Yeah, so my client is a contractor turned developer. So we have multiple projects that he's in the process of that I'm doing these applications on. Would it make more sense for him to create a development company as the parent company, the umbrella company, with each project underneath it? Because as I'm filling these out, am I going to have to get a SAMS on every entity? Or if he creates a development company, just get the SAMS on that, fill everything out at that level, and let it drop to the project. Does that make sense?
I'm following. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be careful. I want to be careful not to give advice as to how to obviously, structure your organizations or anything like that, Jeffrey. But what you're describing does, we're looking for a sam.gov that's associated with that project, and initially we're just looking for one for the developer. So it's, he may want to do that, or and I'm not certain on this because I don't necessarily go into the SAM.gov system directly myself. Individually, he may be able to just demonstrate that he's not debarred individually already. But I'm not sure if SAM.gov will give a UEI number for an individual or if it needs to be a separate business entity or not.
Well, he
So-
also has partners on various developments, right? So from the LLC standpoint, so if he's the developer with a partner on a specific project, I think it would be cleaner to get these SAMs. Well, I don't know. I'm just trying to decide which way to go. Because again, I guess you could argue that if he has somebody disqualified as a partner that's underneath the development company, that could be an issue, correct?
Yes. What we're looking for at the time of the initial application is we're really just looking at that initial, the developer, the planned developer. If the project were to proceed further and actually receive a conditional award from the city and then move toward a closing, there'll be other SAM.gov registrations that we would require prior to that closing. And so if there's a single purpose entity that's formed for the transaction, which is what you may be talking about for each development, you may have a single purpose entity. That entity itself, we would want to see its unique identifier and its SAM.gov registration also, which would, through that process, require all of the individuals who are part of that entity to register, as part of that entity with their names. I think so. And then we're also, when we get to that closing, we're looking for general contractor, any entity that would be receiving or benefiting from the federal funds. It's really just the federal government wanting to make sure that if somebody's done something that the federal government felt the need to debar them from using federal funds, that they're not awarding any additional federal funds to those entities.
So really, then the answer is yes, each individual as well as the contractor, because again, he is the contractor, developer, and investor. So it really needs to be for each of those, is what I'm hearing. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Cruz, your hand was up, but it looks like it's been lowered. Did you still have a question?
Yeah, I guess I'd chime in a little bit. The question I have, like I think I did some applying last round, and I know I got a neighborly account, so but I still got to go through the pre-application and everything, all that again.
Yes.
Okay, Larry.
Yeah, well, because things change. Yeah, certainly projects change. We want to make sure we have the most current update, on how the project's structured and anything that may have changed since the last time we met. Yeah.
Okay. Another question. Now, for the projects that you might have, myself, of 23 unit places, I want to try to see can I get rehab and be able to make it affordable housing. Do they provide, is there any way they provide funding for you can help rehab your project?
I want to make sure I understood the question, Jeffrey. So you're asking if this NOFA is where you can apply to get funding for the costs associated with rehabbing your project to preserve or create affordable housing? If that's the question, this is exactly what that's exactly what this NOFA is for. Is to provide, to help support funding along with an overall capital stack for the project, right? Whether that may involve equity, may involve loans, other things, but this NOFA is to apply for gap funding. So you've assembled all the other funding sources that you can that are available to do your project. And if there's a financial gap and the project is providing affordable housing, that's where this NOFA is for that gap component of the project.
All right. Okay, Larry, we're gonna take another shot.
Okay,
I might be a little bit more ready this time.
that's great.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yawanda?
Greetings. This may have been covered, but I don't recall. Um, when you're saying rehab or can we and new developments, so would this be okay to start new construction? Is there a
Yeah.
minimum criteria for new construction with this program as well?
No, yeah, no, it's new construction or the preservation of existing affordable housing. But so it's any type of program. It can be, or a project. It could be an adaptive reuse of a currently vacant building. So yeah, definitely take some time, read through the NOFA, and I think it kind of explains some of those items pretty well. That
Okay.
it's for new construction. It's to provide affordable housing or preserve either currently regulated or naturally occurring affordable housing in the city of Detroit for the residents of the city.
Okay, so my question would be with new construction, is there a past performance requirement?
Uh, For you mean experience? I mean, again, look at the NOFA.
Yes.
There's
Okay.
a scoring criteria in the NOFA where we do look at when you say past performance, we're looking at the experience of the development team, experience with utilizing federal funds, possibly. If maybe you don't, if you don't individually, you may, but if you don't individually, you could have a consultant or somebody on your team that has that experience that we can look at. We're looking at the general contractor who's going to be doing the actual construction work, their experience working with federal funds and working on draw processes that involve federal funds and city things. So, but yeah, take a look at it. It sort of lays there is all the scoring and how we evaluate the projects is all in that NOFA document.
Okay,
So
and then it sounds like you have maybe on your behalf, someone that's considered something like a technical assistance provider or guide or assigned to your particular project to see it through, or are you expected to if this is a new project and working in this like you just said, it's a fairly new program, so has
mhm.
that been considered?
Yeah, what I would suggest is schedule that pre-application submission meeting, and there'll be members from and for those of you who aren't aware, the city of Detroit also has a team that we refer to as the public-private partnerships team, or P3 team. Many of those individuals, I believe, or some of them are on the call this morning. During
Oh, great.
that call,
Okay.
if it's a
Yep.
newer project, you'll get in contact with somebody from that team who really is designed to help support the development teams with the city processes, and they're familiar with a lot of different opportunities for funding and different things that projects in the city may qualify for. So, and
You.
there's a
That's the answer.
representative by region. Yeah,
Thank you. Yep, you answered my questions. Thank you so much.
cool. Sure.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right. If no one has any immediate questions, again, maybe underwriting, housing underwriting, and maybe Elena, in the event that anyone has any questions for neighborly, if we can stay on a couple more minutes just to leave that time. Thank you, everyone. Eric, would you like to come off of mute and ask your question, just for a little bit, give us a little bit more context?
Yeah, how you doing?
Hello.
Good. Yeah, I was just asking a question generally about if we've had or we have an active RFP that we're engaged in with the city and we have materials that we put together previously, would that be information that we should be submitting in this neighborly file?
Yes, there's actually, in the event that you are submitting, there is actually a field in the application if and you are to determine if the project is tied to a current city RSP that you were awarded. Um, Underwriting does not issue the RFPs. Our public-private partnership team does. So we can't speak to the status of the application. I'm not sure if you've already been awarded or if you're
See, and that's the question.
in
I don't
current.
think that it's been,
Yeah,
I think we're still in waiting to hear back as to whether the about the awarding. And so I was just trying to make sure we didn't muddy the waters or does it create clarity so that you know what's going on and from a parallel stream standpoint, you understand when we got something going elsewhere that we're looking for additional, I guess, funding that would relate to the capital stack that we're trying to create to do the project.
understood. I would encourage you to, oh, go ahead, Larry.
Oh, I was going to say, you're probably going to say the same. I'm probably going to say the same thing you were about to, Naomi. I'm sorry. I think, Derek, again, that pre-application meeting, I think that your presentation may align well with like the project summary. So you could upload that for that pre-application meeting and do it,
Mhm.
and move further. Now, one thing to consider is that this is it's a pretty comprehensive application process, right? And one of the things that the project will need to demonstrate is site control. So the timing of that, maybe we do have this type of NOFA is issued twice a year, approximately every 6 months, generally in July and January.
Mhm.
So, but we could discuss during um,
Yeah,
that pre-application
good.
meeting where you're at and the timing of those things. It's sometimes a challenge, chicken and the egg type thing. That's what I'm hearing. I think the question, right? So,
Yeah. Because I guess it's hard to make a intelligent proposal on something that hasn't been yet awarded, and you know what generally it may be, but you don't know to what extent your award has been accepted or what lots might be given to you for the purpose of development. And so I don't know how to effectively make reference to that so that I can, so that the partners would understand how best to, respond. That's all. And that's why the pre-application meeting, I was trying to understand. I said, okay, I know we need to do this pre-application piece, but it's almost sort of exactly not clear as to what we're responding to. And that sort of gets me back to then the next step, which is the compliance piece, which is sort of, I mean, generally we have all, we will I guess qualified on material specs. I don't think we have anything from a compliance standpoint hindering us, but we don't know what the outcome is from the award, and so we don't know what that might bring about as relates to anything that might um, pose issues or things that we need to be responsive to.
sure. Yeah, it may be that this NOFA is a little early for a project that doesn't already have, an award. But again, if you come to that meeting, somebody from the public-private partnership team who probably was involved in the release of that
Mhm.
that RFP would be there and may already have some familiarity with your project. So it's always good. They say it doesn't
Oh,
hurt to
yeah,
come into that, that pre-application, so we start to get familiar with the project overall
yeah.
too. So,
Okay, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't want to put the name of the project out there, but that we've had extensive discussions with folks in the public-private partnership and up to the mayor, and have been in attendance in several meetings and venues where we've been introduced, and we believe we have a very solid solution to several of the city's issues. However, just this pre-application process just made me a little uncomfortable because I wasn't clear as to, I didn't feel confident about the information that needed to be supplied. And being that we had to have it done by the 8th, and the 8th is right around the corner, I wanted to make sure we knew how to respond. And I didn't want to, reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, I wanted to try to leverage things that we already had that would be familiar. In an effective manner. So again, how long is that neighborly application? I guess the pre-application piece, because you got the pre-application to the application. How long is we're engaged?
Well, the pre-application meeting they're generally scheduled for 30 minutes, and they're more to go over an executive summary, your financial modeling, whether or not you've been through a preliminary plan review meeting with the planning department and sort of things. Just it's more of an introduction so that when we get the application, we've got some familiarity with the project ahead of time, and maybe we've already asked some questions, and we just have a little bit more background on the projects.
Well, let me ask the question this way. If we have an existing project that is in RFP mode, would that in some respects cover many of those questions that will be being asked of us at that point, or will we refer to that information that's been submitted?
You can use that. This is going to be a meeting, though, that's probably with like myself, Naomi, individuals who probably have no familiarity with the project, but who are going to, but who will be ultimately working on the underwriting of the application and looking at it when it comes in. So it's a little bit more to when projects are further along and planning to come into the NOFA, we just sort of like to have those discussions to familiarize ourselves and give maybe suggestions on different, because I don't know if you're talking about a like low-income housing tax credit funded project. I don't know if you're.
I think it would be, but I think it also is one that would, I think it expands into that $3 million category. I think for what we're going to be doing in terms of creating affordable housing for especially addressing homelessness and what have you. And so being able to create, can do community development in that space, that was what we are proposing on. And so we just wanted to even understand, based on the 3 million, how we could leverage that to effectively, how we could, I guess, effectively leverage that from a project programmatic standpoint.
Sure. Yeah, and that's what those are all the sorts of things that we would, that's a good thing to talk through in that meeting a little bit. So it's not a real structured form. I mean, we like to have certain information, but it's, we like to have open time just to kind of talk through the project. So
yeah, I'm probably going to be consulting on the completion of the document, but I didn't know specifically how involved the document is, because I said, I mean, I know you want to get it in as quickly as possible, so we want to have something to you 30th, 31st, or what have you. But is that something that's answerable? Is it a high level summary that you wanted? Is there a lot of detail in this pre-application portion? Is what I was trying to
get. For the pre-application, we're looking for an executive summary. If you go in, when you schedule that within the NOFA, there's a smart sheet to schedule, and it asks, specific items. So we want an executive summary. We'll want to see your financial pro forma. We like to know if, how the project, if you're planning to use tax credits, what the self score is for a 9% tax credit round.
And I'll have to get into that because I don't know the details in that respect. So I'll talk to the CEO and get an understanding of what it was that I guess what their proposal strategy was, and what information they have supplied, and what needs to, and then what they need to give you guys to augment whatever it is we're trying to do to effectively respond to the NOFA. So thank you. I appreciate that. Okay.
Sure. Very good.
Have a good one. You guys take care.
Thanks. Yep. The Michelle, I see a question from Michelle. Is the funding only for residential development or can it be
I
used for
responded in
commercial?
the chat,
Okay,
Larry. Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Thanks, Naomi.
Mhm. So we'll stay on for another, I'd say another 5 minutes. It looks like people are slowly dropping off more and more. We'll stay on for another 5 minutes. 12:53. We'll end the meeting.
Hi, I had a question also. My name is Carrie Roberts. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, hi, Karen.
Yes.
Hi, I was wondering the success rate of projects that are done outside of the targeted multifamily areas. We've been doing affordable housing outside of the area and have been, of course, seeking funding, was excited about the HRD, but also interested in seeing like what has been the success rate. I know it's like special circumstances per the city. We've got the city's involvement on some of the things. What more private funding? Well, when I say private funding, it's like grants from foundations like Rocket and things like that. But this particular development that we're working on, it is specific affordable housing units that we're looking to build, but it's outside of the targeted area.
Is it new construction or is
Yes,
it
these will be new construction. We're currently rehabbing a neighborhood, renovating, well, basically remediating the blight in the neighborhood first on the street, and then looking to build new homes.
this NOFA really is, um, there's 5 points associated with, being located in the targeted multifamily housing area.
Uh,
So
uh-huh.
it's a pretty significant number of points. And really that, we are looking for. Now, make sure you take a look at this NOFA though, because we did recently, there's a new targeted multifamily housing area map that's included in this NOFA. So there's been some additional areas that have been added, I would say, or expanded. Some of the previous areas were expanded. So take a look to make sure, first of all, that your project doesn't do it. And then as far as competitiveness, like it's, each NOFA is different. So it's so hard to tell what projects will come into each NOFA. It changes significantly each round. So.
Okay, great. I think I seen that too, that it was some updates to the mapping, so that's great. I know one of our projects are in there that we're looking to sponsor, but we're looking at two different projects, one specifically on the permanent supportive housing side for one of our clients, and then the other would be the multifamily affordable housing that is actually in one of the designated areas. The one I'm looking for mostly is the permanent supportive piece because that's where we've been doing the development for in the neighborhood where we adopted two city blocks to one of the nonprofits that we work for essentially.
Sure.
So okay, so that's understandable.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
and if it's
thank you all.
and if it's supportive housing, then of course you're competing against other supportive housing projects. So it depends on how many are in the round, right, for supportive housing. And I mean, we have had a project that moved forward previously that was not in a targeted multifamily housing area. So.
Okay, thanks guys and ladies.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you everyone again for participating today. And if there are any additional questions, again, please reach out to us at hrdnofa@detroitmi.gov. Have a good afternoon, everyone.